Hey, check up. Let's play some D. Welcome to episode 27 of Play Some D, my weekly installment of goodies. Four goodies usually. Sometimes there's five with overtime, but Play Some D is a four-quartered theme, originally meant to be sports themed and music themed and movie themed. But as of like today, it is everything under the sun. Play Some D is variety, blah, blah, of just a bunch of things that I thoroughly enjoy doing. And this week I'm all over the place. I think consistently in the last few episodes I've been super sports related because it's that time of the year with sports and whatnot. So it's kind of just natural that was going to happen. But this week is Instagram and fake meat, and there is NBA in there because ESPN had their top. They ranked their top. I don't know if it was 100, but I'll talk about the top, really the top 10. But I'll run through the top 25. And pandemic, the pandemic and sex. So how it's affected. It was just some interesting articles that I've been reading, and then it was an interesting topic on one of the shows I listened to about it, and it sparked it up. So I was like, hey, why not? Why not talk about it? Why not talk about it? So yeah, that's it's as if so. Just make sure fake meat, NBA, the pandemic, and Instagram. I think Instagram is a topic this week. So as always, if you like the content or want to come back for more, please hit the subscribe. Also hit the like button, turn on post notifications. All those good bells and whistles is thoroughly appreciated. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump up into this first quarter. And first quarter is the sex and pandemic. If you Google all different variations of pandemic and love and pandemic and sex or whatever the case may be, you get a series of articles. So even if you just hit the latest news stuff on on Google, you get I completely lost my sex drive during the pandemic. The pandemic disrupted sex ed when students needed it most. I feel a bit rusty. Toy habits. Canadians are having more sex unless they're with their parents. A sex worker reveals her life after COVID decimates it. Sex actually with Alice Levine goes inside the pandemic sex. Like there's the pandemic put more kids at risk of sex trafficking. So just to think about the the various overarching themes that the pandemic. I mean, sex is a big part of life and people's lives. That may be a broad statement, but overall, it it is. It can be. It should be. Some people may not. There obviously there's exceptions to the rules, but sex is a big part of society all over the world. So it's how you reproduce, all that good stuff. So just the overarching ideas that you just think about, break it down on the last layers that sex workers. So like it throws a monkey wrench at everything. So those people that work, it's not about it being legal or illegal. That's not what the topic is. It's just how disruptive it was is what I really want to discuss and what I'm most fascinated about. Those people that were making a living or whatnot. It's hard on both sides because yeah, there's people that wants to. There's some people out there that wasn't worried, not worried about COVID at all or whatever. It's like if I get sick, I get sick. So they're still calling, But a lot of that takes a big hit in everything you do, even with sports. Like people that want to go see sports, there's always going to be a fraction of people that's just going to be a little bit worried about the pandemic. That's just natural. That's just how things are when things like this happen that make people worry a little bit. So that's an early disruption. Then the sex worker has to figure out like, hey, I gotta make money. So what do I do? Sex workers can't collect unemployment, right? Unless they had some form of a job before. But if that's what all they were doing, they have to then go put themselves at risk, and then transition into just your average individual who may be more insatiable, I guess is a good word to use, that they really want to um, be touched or whatever the case may be, or just have sex or whatever. You then once again put yourself at that risk. So people have to make the concerted effort of meeting somebody, then trusting somebody, and that whole process could take a lot longer than you would normally do before the pandemic, because you could just kind of just mess around, or hookup culture they call it. That stuff you kind of just have to think. You have to think about. Um, the sex toy industry. The one article mentions that the sex toy companies, they saw a big boom over during the pandemic, which, and I guess they really wanted like quiet toys, because you're in the crib with other people. So that's all that stuff is just so interesting, and it makes a total lot of sense. But I just think that people should have always had a cautious thought process with it, in terms of just um, you don't want COVID, but you don't want really anything nasty, right? You don't want to get sick. You don't want the flu. You don't want to be around somebody that's got pink eye, or all of those things. So you would think we would have already been a little bit more conscious about who we dealt with. Me personally, I wouldn't say I'm the greatest at all, but you don't want to be around, or next to, or certain types of people. That's just regardless of COVID or not. So then you kind of build up the idea of what type of people you trust, characteristics, and things of that nature. And I do think COVID will help people with that moving forward, which I think is in a good thing, because as I always said, COVID has increased hygiene, period. So many people just didn't, you go in the bathrooms and people just walked out without even just splashing some water on their hands. But now people are actually trying to make an attempt to try to stay a lot more clean than they used to. Then the people that have completely lost my sex drive, it's like the downerness of it. Like some people are in the routine of like going to work and having fun, maybe going out to the bar, and that stuff kind of gets your libido or whatever moving. And and if you're not doing that, or weren't doing that during the pandemic, and still kind of are on the fence with doing that, or you're still not going to work, everything's happening at home, and you're kind of just dragging and kind of down, that really affects, it's just amazing how many different angles that the pandemic can affect someone's sex life. And then it's just the people that's just like hands off, no, 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 no. Like I'm waiting till everybody's fully vaccinated, we're all good, COVID's like down in the dumps, and we can kind of get back to normal. Then I'll get back out there. And I think that overall too affects a person's psyche, especially if they, like I said, if you are that lovable person, or a person that likes to, cuddle and be around people and hug and kiss and things of that nature. And it's not just necessarily about the sexual intercourse part of it. It's more just that or interpersonal and personal relationships you have with other people, especially on an intimate level. The one interesting one that is from the Guardian is the headline is "I feel rusty." Another topic for another day, but I mean, I'd imagine for the people that's good at sex, it's like riding a bike. I don't know how you feel rusty. I don't know what rust. I don't know what the rust. I don't know how you can be rusty. I mean, you can have maybe your rhythms off for a little bit or something like that, but you kind of get that back. I mean, unless once again you were one of those people that just weren't really involved originally, and you really just fell off the wagon. Once again, personally, I just don't know how that all happens, but it's funny to see. It was interesting to look at these articles. I was originally going to like hammer down on like a specific article or a specific topic, but it's just so broad about how the pandemic has how COVID has affected every little inkling of life, and and even that's like I believe one of the most important things. Even you could this topic could have been money in the pandemic. You could, and I think that's a little bit more boring, and I'm sure people are sick of talking about money, and I don't even really want to talk about money, but you could take the same thing and switch it from sex to money in pandemic, and just how COVID and the pandemic obviously affected people's wallets, and how it has helped some people that weren't making as much, and then they got those assistance. So it's a number of different things, but sex is such a I don't know, let's just say a normal, just natural thing that everybody, like I said originally, can and should be doing. And you would have think it would have been a little more bulletproof with the pandemic. But yeah, and I even think I'm actually pretty sure I saw Mississippi's birth rate has dropped, and obviously the less babies, and people don't really want to have, you don't want to, it's kind of smart to not be having babies, getting pregnant in a environment where you don't know what may or may not happen with your job, your life, the world, all that above. So seeing that kind of gives me a little inkling, like, oh yeah, there's still some logic up there. So could go on all day. This could be a whole thing, and a whole gigantic episode. I could talk about this all day long, but that was just the things I wanted to touch on, just the different angles that the pandemic has pushed people in their sex lives. It just thought it was super duper interesting. So kind of just I wouldn't say a natural transition, but second quarter is Instagram and your image. I didn't know how to phrase this. The original reason that sparked my idea to do a quarter on Instagram was what Instagram is doing to girls, and what Facebook knows it's doing to girls. There's an article, and I think it's I forgot where the article. Facebook knows Instagram is toxic for teen girls. Wall Street Journal does an article. And then Time magazine has an article that says Instagram is doing grave harm to our generation. We need help to stop it. I knew right away what Instagram was. I personally don't have an Instagram. You do need, obviously, I think Instagram and TikTok, you have to have some kind of an account set up to be able to view. People will send you pictures and videos, and you kind of want to watch them, see, so you can interact with your friends to send you stuff. So you have that. But if you're not using Instagram, I've always said since I think a couple months into Instagram, if you're not using it to make you money for marketing, I personally think it is completely pointless to have. Immediately after that, it turned into influencers and models and flaunting and food and shoes and just weird fantasy photos is what Instagram really should be called. It's a fantasizing photo journal for the people that actually live the lifestyle. And then I guess filters came along at some point, and then it really kind of turned things just in an interesting fashion, because you don't at all know what you're looking at on Instagram. And you take just take the teen girls argument. You take a teen girl who doesn't have friends, who's trying to find a way in, to want, that craves the human attention or affection, and you're like, what gets all the likes on Instagram? You can easily go and find that information out, and then you can easily transform into something else that you completely aren't, that could lead you down a road that is completely very, very harmful to you. So that's easy for a teen girl to do, easy for a teen boy to do, easy for grown-ups to do. Everybody can fall into that window. Body goals, couple goals, just silly, silly, silly stuff. And Instagram has done harm. It has obviously helped people. It's obviously made people money, and for all that, that's good. But Instagram needs to kind of be stripped back down to bear for everybody, and then give content. There should be some kind of like learning angle on Instagram. Like Instagram should have like caveats. Like, these pictures are doctored up, and these people aren't, exactly who they say they are, and things of that nature. And the same obviously can be said for YouTube too. But videos, a little bit, in videos things stick out a lot different than pictures. Pictures are still shots of an angle, and things can be manipulated and then edited, altered, and they are. But as far as like products go, and marketing and branding, things of that nature, like, you want to buy the latest shoe, it's cool to see. When I mentioned shoes earlier, I'm like, people taking pictures of their shoes, but like, if you wanted the latest Nikes or something like that, and you didn't have time to run to the store to see them, you can go on Instagram maybe, and they'll hide a picture of them, and then that'll give you a better idea. Like, oh, that's the color, that's the pastel color, or the black color, or that's where the black is, that's where the patent leather is. Obviously, you can see that on their site, but if you're an Instagram user and that's how you navigate, you don't want to go to Nike.com, you just switch over to the Nike page for Instagram. It's maybe easier, and you can see something like that, or jackets you might like. Obviously, I'm a firm believer, and I never thought apps should have existed. Apps should have never. I remember the first time apps came along, I said, this is stupid. This is just a web page where you just click on it to go to a web page, where I could just open up a link. I could just open up Chrome, or at the time Internet Explorer, that's how long ago this was, or Firefox, and just go to that site, or go to that web page. And that's how things should have stayed. Apps just made things so much accessible, and mainly privacy. They were, so they can track you. That was the original thing, to gather and grab all your data. So that's another thing that Instagram does. And then being bought by Facebook was also another kind of flag. Only reason I personally have Facebook is for family. I don't really need it for any other thing, and I don't put any real quality information on Facebook, and I access it through the web. So Instagram and the generation is beat up on people. And yes, are you able to see some of your friends out of the country? Sure. That you wouldn't keep track of? Sure. You could do that on Facebook, you could do that on in other ways. But the real, that's that I would consider as the good. But there's the harm, is the flaunting, and the, like I said, the fantasizing and overemphasizing things that's not exactly what you think it is. And then you create a perception about a person or thing, and then they blow up, and then they're an influencer. But it's like, that's cool and all, but that kind of gets to a, you would think, I thought it would get to a tipping point where it's like, okay, like pizza, like, oh, I've eaten that enough, like this week, I don't need that anymore. You would think that would be the case, but it never really did, and it's still a nice ball that's rolling. So understanding how Instagram can affect the youth is probably the bigger thing, but I've seen the effects on it on adults too. So it definitely can alter and sway your image and make you kind of, as the kids say, feel a certain type of way. So second quarter breaking down right into halftime, and my halftimes always suck, but one day they will be good, I promise. And third quarter is the ESPN NBA rankings. I have it here, and that's it. I'm just gonna go through the 25, and then I'm gonna do a quick run through of my 10. So Rudy Gobert 25. I would have to see who's at 26, but it's no shot that I'm putting Rudy Gobert in my top 25, and all this dude does is play defense. He can't get you a basket in no way, shape, or form. Cat at 24, I don't mind. Zion at 23, I don't mind. Drew at 22, Bam at 21, I'm good with. Kyrie at 20, I think is not correct. Mundo, he should be high. Kyrie's absolutely better than Chris Middleton. Kyrie's absolutely better than Donovan Mitchell. Kyrie's absolutely better than Trae Young. Give me Kyrie over Jimmy Butler, and that's probably where it would end. So Devin Booker at 15 is right. Tatum at 14 is probably right. Christopher is not better than Jason Tatum. Not, and I said I don't know. I'm just gonna say just a player. Chris Paul impact on the game is probably bigger than Jason Tatum, but Jason Tatum is a better player at this point in his career. Jason Tatum is better than Paul George. Booker and Paul George may be roughly around the same. Bradley Beal, I don't mind that, but he's absolutely. I would take Bradley Beal over Jason Tatum. I think that's kind of a tough one. That's a tough one for sure. James Harden at 10 is correct. Anthony Davis at 9 with his injuries right now, I think that is correct. Lillard at 8. That's tough. These are tough. These are all arguable. I'm taking Anthony Davis over Jokic though. That's for sure. Anthony Davis is just better. I know the injuries, but just a basketball player, Anthony Davis is better. So I don't mind him at 9 because of the injuries. And Lillard, Joel's better than Jokic. So put Joel at 6 for me. And yeah. So then the top 5. Let me see. I think 5 is here. So yeah. So Joel will be 6. I don't mind that. Luka's 5 for me. Luka's definitely 5. Luka's 5. 4 is Giannis. LeBron is 3, and I think Curry and Durant are neck and neck. I just don't think Durant would have done what Steph did with that Warriors team, but just Durant skill set, he is the best player right now in the league. But he had a lot of help, and then when he did, he fought. Steph did lose to Ja and the Grizzlies, which wasn't good. They should have beat the Lakers in that first game, which would have probably changed some things. I personally do think. But I think Steph and Durant are neck and neck at the end of the season. Right before those playoffs started, I had Steph as the best player. But it's kind of like what have you done for me lately? Durant was a big toe away from sending his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, which would have then probably at some point got them to the finals. And they probably would have got her done more than likely, as long as everybody stay healthy. So I give Durant the nod. I would put Steph at 2. LeBron's 3. Giannis is 4. I would say Luka is 5, and then Joel 6. I think that's proper for this list. And yeah, that was just a. I'm gonna do that real super duper quick. Um, Interesting news with the whole vaccine and Wiggins and Kyrie, and I guess Rolling Stones put out an article about that, and that was just wild and silly. I mean, I get it, but you make that much money and your league makes, or they got to follow the rules in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know how they're gonna handle that, but that's super duper interesting. So yeah, that's my NBA rankings. Uh, it'll be it'll be an interesting fun season, and I know Kawhi Kawhi and Jamal Murray were excluded, which rightfully so. I think that's the right way to do that when players are about to be hurt for the upcoming season. I just think you should take them off. So I think ESPN did a good job with doing that. If Kawhi, say healthy Kawhi was in there, Kawhi definitely goes above Luka. So everybody bumps down, and I put Kawhi at 5. Luka would go to 6. Joel would go to 7. Everybody would just bump up. And I think that would be correct. Luka would go to 6. I don't think Luka's 4. Just he's not. All right, so fourth quarter is just probably another quickie. So the counter.org, and I'll put the link in the description for this article. It's a huge, really good article. I've read a good amount of it, not all of it. It's just a lot to take in about lab grown meat and the companies that kind of just jumped out on it and just got a bunch of funding and said we won't need real meat anymore. And whoever bought that idea is just goofy. People, unless you erased us right now and put a whole new species of people back on the planet and said, "Oh, this is what we eat now. This is what we eat. This is how you get food." Cows and all that stuff don't need to exist and be different. But humans know what humans has been around, is teaching generation to generation. You know what real is. In this article, it mentions something about people only have an appetite for fake nuggets for so long. Like, I don't want to eat fake nuggets. And again, that's all a part of branding, marketing, and things of that nature. And what we know to be true is that if I can eat a real cow that I've enjoyed, or chicken, turkey, so forth and so on, fish, I don't mind having some fake stuff every now and then. But to replace my palate and say this is all I'm gonna eat, that's just not gonna happen. That really could end fourth quarter. That's really how it should. Should end fourth quarter just like that. That's just not, it's not gonna happen. Like, if all the big, what is it, big ag, or that they call it big agriculture or whatever, if Tyson and all of them just stop, people would buy land, buy chickens, raise chickens, and if they couldn't necessarily sell it, people would grow it, kill it, eat it themselves. Like, you can't force feed somebody something that they know that there's something else out there that exists. That's kind of how everything, gets conjured. That's how people started thinking about the planets. Like, we're not the only planet. Like, look, there's more out there. You can't tell me this is the only one and restrict me to just learn about this one when there's all those stars. And I know it's kind of the same concept. It's like you're not gonna trick people with eating fake stuff. Just like buying fake stuff. Like, yes, people have an appetite and want to go and buy fake shoes, fake bags, fake whatever. But if the time comes and you can afford or want to, or just however you want to get it, I want a real one this time. Like, give me a real watch, give me a real, and that's just, you know, just everything. It's like video games, maybe a bad example, but it's a simulation of, say, playing basketball or playing Madden. But it's like, hey, I want to actually go out. Like, you're not going to replace my competitive spirit with a video game. Like, I want to go out and grab a real basketball and compete with some people. I want to go out and play football and actually myself go and tackle somebody. Not necessarily the same thing, but you get the idea. It's just, gotta be real careful with how that swings. And the reason why the article really got me is that it's just so much money's been sunk into this, the idea that it'll bring these costs down. And basically the article says that it's really not, it's not going to bring costs down. It'll probably turn out to, if not being the same, then more. And it's just not, it was another good quote in there, just said you just gotta, the innovation with real meat has to be mixed in with the innovation of lab grown cultivated meat. They need to coexist together, and one can't, it's not sustainable for one to take over the other. And I think that's what makes the most sense. Like, felt, and I think I mentioned on Play Some D that everything is like super OD, like just we're going in a certain direction. Like, it's far right, far left politics. It's do you have to do this, you have to do that, or you don't have to do this, you don't have to like there's no like middle ground where people are just like, and a lot of it is obviously, as I mentioned in first quarter, money. Sick of talking about money, but everything revolves around that. If money wasn't the motivator, then a lot of decisions would be made differently. People would look at things differently. People would do things differently, act differently, and something would obviously take money's place, whether it's bartering or however the case may be. That's just how a society would have to work and things like that. And you break all that stuff down. Another topic, quarter for another day, but same ideas that you can't tell somebody walk into a room and say, hey, give me all this funding, but to be a genius to sell that, but to say, give me all this funding, I'm gonna replace meat because it's messing up the environment. We gotta switch climate change, and I'll have this fixed in no time. And then now they're saying all they keep doing is just moving the goalposts. It's like, oh, every couple years. Like, oh, when is that gonna be ready? When you gonna be able to, yeah, and then it's like in some of the meat, when you look at, a lot of people don't even look at the ingredients. They just don't eat meat anymore. And there's Beyond Meat and tofu and other different options, things of that nature. And people are just like, just give it to me. I can't eat meat. I need my protein. But you look at some of the ingredients in there, and you really shouldn't be consuming that on a consistent basis. Flip side of that is that, yeah, some of the steroids that go into, I'm sure they're going to our cows and things of that nature, and the feed they eat and all that good stuff. It may not be the greatest, but that's why you got to have a balance of what you eat and knowing what you're eating. And that's the other whole aspect of what begins to happen when you try to cut costs, get costs super low, and you're feeding somebody something fake. What starts to go in it, people get really concerned about that. I.e., same thing with the, similar to the vaccine. People are just like worried, like, you made that. I know you want to keep costs down. I know you want to do this. I know the ideas of what the government and the world wants to do, and people start getting these thoughts in their head, whichever way they go, and understandably so, true or not, or crazy, or brilliant, whichever way you think about it. People have the right to think, analyze those things, and they shouldn't be banished or honest discussion, or you're wrong or I'm right, or that's what it should be, but it's gotten super out of hand. And documentaries with eating meat and what they do to the ocean and fishing, and yeah, things need to come down. But that's on that spectrum of just being super OD with things. We got to reel everything back in and get to a. It's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna be a happy medium, but where we swim in a nice decent base that seems realistic in helping the environment, seem realistic in giving people food that they want, can consume, can't eat, and then just wastefulness. The article talks about wasting stuff too. I mean, just wastefulness. A lot of stuff, a lot of food gets thrown away, which causes another topic for another day. I mean, I could have probably had 8 quarters here just with bouncing things out of. I mean, the third quarter NBA wasn't nothing I could technically bounce out, but the other 3 quarters I could have spawned a bunch of different ideas and could have had overtime, but no OT in 27. But yeah, the fake meat topic is very, very interesting, and I'll have my eye on it because that's one thing that meat will probably have to kill me for me to stop eating it. Just being honest. That is episode 27 of Play Some D. This one, as always, I don't have a script. I'm not reading off anything. I come in here, I have an idea, and I just want to just spitball. Obviously, I looked at the NBA rankings. I watched the NBA heavily, so that's just already conjured. I could have made my own list, and obviously I went to the third quarter in a few minutes. Like I knew exactly, there's no thought process. I know who's, in my opinion, who's better than others, who's top players, who's not. That's easy. But the fake meat, the Instagram, sex in the pandemic, all that stuff is just super, super interesting. You can have long discussions with very, very cool people about that. At one day or hopefully, or I would love to talk through these topics with actual experts and people that know the stuff. I mean, I'm opinionated and I read and I try to find the facts and things of that nature, but I'm no expert in none of this stuff. I'm just a human that interacts in these different arenas. So I feel like I have an opinion because, I'm really not going to talk too much about stuff I don't know. But, I mean, I had an Instagram and, like I said, I immediately, so I'm in tech too. So I kind of knew right away the fake meat argument. I always, even when I was younger, I was like, why we even got to eat regular meat all the time? Like, can't you make, I had that idea, and I think it already exists, but I didn't know. Growing up, back then we ate meat, and then like I mentioned in the first quarter, like to me, sex is important. Like one of the people I watch a lot is Bill Maher, and he's like, man, if when shootings happen and things of that nature or crazy stuff happen, like, man, if these people was out getting laid, you would never have these issues, and I totally agree with that. So. I think sex is important. So, and what the pandemic has done to it, some good, some bad, some indifferent, but it has flipped it around a little bit, or at least people's perception on how they think about it has been flipped around a little bit. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Obviously, again, if you like the content, if you want to come back, all that stuff, subscribe, like the video, turn on your post notifications, and as always, until the next one, I holla.